There are moments in every soul's journey when the world seems too heavy, the dream too distant, the promise too unlikely to ever unfold. These are the moments when the human mind says, it cannot be done, yet something deeper within you whispers, but what if it already is? And in that whisper lies the doorway to the miraculous, the threshold to a truth so powerful, so ancient, and so divine that when you grasp it, even for a moment, the impossible begins to bow before you. Tonight, allow your spirit to soften. Allow your breathing to slow. Allow the noise of the outer world to fade like distant waves. For we are entering the inner chamber where the laws of consciousness reveal themselves. The chamber where the seemingly impossible is not only possible, but inevitable for the one who aligns with the creative nature of God. It is written, with God all things are possible. But what many never realize is that this truth was never meant to remain a comforting phrase. It was meant to become the structure of your inner life. It was meant to shape the way you think, feel, imagine, and walk. It was meant to remind you that impossibility is not a condition of the world, it is a condition of consciousness. And consciousness can be transformed. When a person awakens to this, something extraordinary happens. They stop living from circumstances. They stop worshiping the visible. They stop negotiating with limitation. They step into their rightful place as a creator, not a passive observer, not a victim of fate, but a living expression of divine imagination. For you were made in the image of God, and the image of God is not a physical blueprint, but a spiritual one. The ability to imagine, to believe, to call forth the unseen, and clothe it in substance. The earliest pages of Scripture do not begin with science or history, but with a demonstration. And God said, let there be, and there was. Creation begins in the invisible. Creation begins in the spoken word. Creation begins in the mind of God. And because you are made in His image, creation begins in you in the very same way. The world calls this faith. Mystics call it assumption. Science calls it quantum observation. Scripture calls it the evidence of things not seen. Different languages, one law. And this law does not bend to the one who doubts, hesitates, or waits for proof. It bends to the one who dares to believe, dares to assume, dares to imagine boldly enough to step into the state of the impossible until the impossible recognizes itself in them. The truth you must awaken to now is this. Nothing that appears impossible is actually impossible, not to the one who understands identity. For impossibility only exists when you see yourself as separate from the outcome. It dissolves the moment you unify yourself with the end, the moment you become, in consciousness, the one who already possesses what you seek. Manifestation is not about forcing reality. It is about assuming a state. It is about stepping into the version of yourself for whom the miracle is normal. It is about embodying the identity where the impossible is already done. And as this identity becomes your dwelling place, the world around you rearranges itself to match your inner state with mathematical precision. So let us walk now into the heart of this teaching. There is a version of you real, living, already complete, who has manifested the thing you once believed to be impossible. This version of you does not struggle. They do not doubt. They do not plead with God to make it happen. They live in the reality of the manifested desire. For them, the miracle is memory. You must now become familiar with this self. You must speak from their voice. You must feel from their heart. You must imagine from their world. You must awaken their identity within your own. For the moment you identify with the fulfilled version of yourself, the impossible loses its power over you. It cannot intimidate you. It cannot deceive you. It cannot tower above you like a giant. The impossible becomes simply another state of consciousness, one you have already stepped into. This is why Jesus never struggled to perform miracles. He did not hope. He did not try. He did not strain. He simply assumed the state of the one for whom the miracle was already accomplished. When he said, "It is finished," he was not describing the end of his life. He was describing the nature of creation itself. Every manifestation is finished in consciousness before it appears in form. The seemingly impossible becomes possible the moment you accept it as already done. So breathe deeply now. Let your mind drift from the limitations of the world. Let your heart open to the higher realm of divine possibility. Let your imagination begin to move like a gentle river, flowing effortlessly into a vision of your desire fulfilled. Not someday, not one day, not when God decides. Now, already done, completed in spirit. And as your imagination touches that reality, Feel your identity begin to shift. You are no longer the one trying to manifest. You are the one who has manifested. You are no longer asking, how will this happen? You are saying quietly, this is who I am now. You are no longer waiting for God to move. You are moving with the God who is already expressing the miracle through you. Identity is the seed. Imagination is the soil. Feeling is the water. Faith is the sunlight. Manifestation is the harvest. An impossibility has no place in this ecosystem. It cannot grow where identity is aligned with God's truth. Now, allow one impossible desire to rise in your awareness. Something you have secretly hoped for but have never dared to fully assume. Something you told yourself was too large, too unexplainable, too far beyond your reach. Hold it gently. Do not analyze it. Do not measure it against circumstances. Just let it live in your mind for a moment like a seed resting on the palm of your hand. And as you gaze at this desire, declare silently within yourself, this is not impossible. It is already done in me. Feel how your body responds to this truth. Something loosens, something softens, something awakens. This is your spirit, recognizing its own authority. You are not asking creation to bend for you. You are recognizing that creation originates in you. You are not commanding reality from ego. You are aligning with the divine blueprint within you. You are not hoping for the impossible. You are remembering that nothing is impossible with God, and God expresses himself through your imagination. Now take a breath, slow and deep. Let the breath carry you into the feeling of fulfillment. Let the feeling carry you into the identity of the one who already possesses. This is the ignition point. This is where the seemingly impossible begins to take shape. This is where your inner world becomes the author of your outer world. And as the breath settles, allow this sacred truth to rise to the surface of your awareness. The impossible becomes possible the moment you stop negotiating with your old self. You cannot create the miraculous from a state of limitation. You cannot manifest abundance from a state of lack. You cannot call forth healing from the identity of the unhealed. You cannot receive love while holding the vibration of abandonment. This is why identity must shift first. Identity is the doorway. Identity is the key. Identity is the throne from which manifestation is commanded. And now that you have stepped into the identity of the fulfilled self, now that you have tasted the feeling tone of the miracle, reality must bow. It must reorganize itself. It must reflect what you have accepted in consciousness, because consciousness is the only creative force in the universe. All else is echo. And so you stand now at the threshold where the unseen begins to take form, where the inner shift becomes the outer unfolding, where the identity of the fulfilled self quietly expands through every corner of your being. This is the holy moment where impossibility cracks, where the laws you once believed governed your life give way to higher laws. God's laws, consciousness laws, the laws written into your spirit before you ever touch the earth. Feel how your awareness deepens as you step forward. There is no resistance here, no friction, no hesitation, only alignment. For the moment you accept your desire as part of your identity, not a wish, not a dream, not a distant possibility, but identity creation begins its work. It begins not with noise, but with stillness, not with fireworks, but with quiet shifts, not with dramatic signs, but with the subtle rearrangement of your internal world, which is always the precursor to the rearrangement of your external world. Identity is the root, life is the fruit, and you continue to take root in a new reality, a reality where what once felt unreachable now feels familiar, almost natural. This is the sign that manifestation is no longer a hope. It has become your state of being. So let the awareness rise within you now that nothing outside you has the authority to contradict what God has established within you. No opinion, no condition, no memory, no fear can override the identity you are choosing in this moment. For you are learning the sacred secret. Your inner assumption is stronger than the external world. The world is not the cause, it is the reflection. And reflection cannot resist the face it mirrors. This is why Jesus never adjusted himself to circumstance. He adjusted circumstance to the truth of his inner state. When he stood before the tomb of Lazarus, the world saw death. The mourners saw the end. But Jesus saw life. He did not consult the senses. He consulted the truth. And the external world bent to his inner knowing. That same power is in you, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, spiritually, functionally. the power to assume an identity and allow the world to conform. So let us go deeper now into the mechanics of the seemingly impossible. The impossible is not a wall. It is a horizon, one that expands the moment you walk toward it. When you desire something beyond your current circumstances, you are not asking for a miracle. You are being invited to evolve. The desire itself is the calling. The longing itself is the prophecy. The vision itself is the evidence that the fulfillment already exists in you. For why would God place a desire in your heart that has no corresponding reality? Why would the Spirit stir a longing that has no fulfillment? Why would imagination reveal a state that does not already exist in consciousness? It would not. It cannot. Because God is not the author of fantasy, He is the author of creation. And creation begins with desire. Desire is the voice of God, whispering what is possible for you. Desire is the map toward the self you are becoming. Desire is the seed of the fulfilled identity. This is why Neville Goddard taught that desire is always a gift, an invitation to step into a richer, fuller expression of being. And when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you clothe yourself in the identity of the one who already has, the desire becomes not a longing but a memory. And memories manifest effortlessly. So now bring to mind again that one desire you once labeled impossible. Do not shrink from it. Do not measure it against logic. Do not compare it to your past. Just hold it softly like a flame cupped in your hands. And ask yourself, what would it feel like if this were already true? How would I breathe? How would I walk? How would I speak? How would I pray? How would I sleep tonight? How would I wake tomorrow morning? Let the answers rise naturally. Do not manufacture them. Do not force emotion. Let the feeling come to you like a gentle warmth spreading through your chest. This feeling is the bridge. This feeling is the key. This feeling is the signature of your new identity. And as you feel it, understand this. You are no longer imagining the impossible. You are assuming the inevitable. For everything you accept in consciousness becomes inevitable in form. Now notice something subtle shifting within you. The desire no longer feels distant. It no longer feels like something you are reaching for. It feels closer, almost like something that has already brushed against your life. This is the moment when the impossible begins to reorganize itself in the unseen. The impossible does not break into your world suddenly. It forms in the quiet, internal shift of identity. And once identity moves, reality follows. Always, without exception. This is why your task is not to change the world, it is to change yourself. Not through effort, but through assumption. Not through control, but through acceptance. Not through struggle, but through aligning with your God-given creative nature. The seemingly impossible is simply the unaccepted possible. And tonight, you accept it, not with force, not with desperation, but with the quiet authority of one who knows their source. So breathe into this truth now. Let your breath be slow and reverent. Feel the Spirit settle deeper into your awareness. Feel your mind releasing the last fragments of resistance. Feel your heart opening to the reality that has always been yours. This is the moment you cross into a new state. This is the moment your inner world claims the impossible as identity. This is the moment you become the vessel through which God expresses the miraculous. And once the miraculous is your identity, it cannot be impossible. It becomes your nature, your normal, your expression of divine sonship. The world will not understand this transformation at first. They will look for evidence. They will look for logic. They will look for reasons to believe. But you need none of these, for your evidence is internal. Your logic is spiritual. And your reason is identity itself. For the one who believes, the impossible becomes inevitable. For the one who assumes, the impossible becomes familiar. For the one who embodies the miracle in consciousness, the miracle cannot be withheld. And you right now are becoming that one. Your desire is no longer a wish. It is an identity. It is a state. It is a spiritual fact. This is where we pause only for breath, not for thought before entering the next movement. And as this spiritual fact settles into the deepest part of your awareness, you begin to sense the sacred weight of it, not a heaviness, but a divine gravity, drawing all things into alignment with the identity you now assume. This is the quiet pivot point, where manifestation stops being something you chase and becomes something you radiate. You no longer send energy outward toward your desire. Your desire is drawn toward you by the simple law of resonance. For everything in creation is seeking its own frequency, and you have shifted yours. You have stepped into the emotional, spiritual, and imaginal vibration of the fulfilled state. And the fulfilled state must call its own reflection into form. Feel this truth deepen like a well within you. Feel how your breath becomes slower. Feel how your awareness expands subtly, effortlessly. Feel how your spirit begins to rest in a new kind of trust, not the trust of waiting, but the trust of knowing. This is the trust that turns impossibility into inevitability. This is the trust that Christ embodied when he said, "According to your faith be it unto you," not according to your struggle, not according to your worthiness, not according to your circumstances, according to your faith, your inner assumption, your identity, your imaginal acceptance. For faith is identity clothed in feeling. Faith is imagination fused with conviction. Faith is the language of the subconscious, the womb of creation. And when your subconscious accepts something as true, the world must reveal it. Not eventually, not if conditions allow, but by law, the same law that governs time, gravity, cycles, and the beating of your own heart. You are now tapping into that law. You are aligning with the creative principle behind all manifestation. So let us move even deeper into the realm where the seemingly impossible dissolves entirely. The impossible exists only for the mind that depends on the senses to guide its beliefs. The impossible exists only when you look to the world to define what is possible for you. The impossible exists only when you measure divine identity with human limitation. But the moment you stop consulting the external world and begin consulting the truth of your inner one, the impossible loses all meaning. The senses show you only what you have previously assumed. Imagination shows you what you may now assume. Your senses report the past. Your imagination creates the future. Your identity determines which one you serve. You have chosen correctly. You have chosen imagination. You have chosen the inner world. You have chosen to think from the end, not toward it. And in doing so, you have crossed into the realm where impossibility cannot touch you. So let us allow this shift to strengthen. Picture yourself standing in a vast open space, not physical, but spiritual. A space without walls, without edges, without barriers. This is the dimension of consciousness, the place where all states exist. Every version of you is here. Every possibility is here. Every impossible miracle is already here, alive in potential. Now imagine yourself stepping forward, and before you, the state you once called impossible illuminates not as something to achieve, but as something to enter. It exists here, fully formed, waiting not for effort, but for identity. You approach it gently. You step into it fully. You allow it to wrap itself around you like a garment of light, and in that moment, you realize this state fits perfectly. It does not feel foreign. It does not feel unreachable. It feels like home, as though you were always meant to live here. Because you were, you are, you now do. The seeming impossibility dissolves the moment the state becomes familiar. For familiarity is acceptance. Acceptance is embodiment. Embodiment is manifestation. This inner movement, this shift from longing to belonging, is the moment miracles begin to form. You do not chase the miracle. The miracle recognizes you. You do not strive for the blessing. The blessing returns to its owner. You do not plead with God. You align with God. And in that alignment, everything changes. Your inner speech changes first. Words you once used, I hope, I wish, I'm trying, fall away like old leaves. You now speak from the completed state. Your inner language becomes simple, direct, grounded. It is done. This is who I am now. It belongs to me. I walk in the fulfillment. I live from the end. And because your inner speech has changed, your emotional tone begins to change with it. Peace becomes your default. Confidence becomes your posture. Gratitude becomes your atmosphere. And clarity becomes your companion. These emotions are not produced through force. They arise naturally from identity. You feel peace because you are the fulfilled one. You feel confidence because the miracle is inevitable. You feel gratitude because your spirit has seen the end. You feel clarity because there is nothing left to question. And as these emotions fill your being, something far greater begins to stir. The subconscious begins to shift. The deeper mind begins to reorganize your inner world. Thoughts, beliefs, assumptions, that do not belong to the identity of fulfillment begin to fall away. Old doubts lose their voice. Old fears lose their footing. Old memories lose their authority. Old versions of you lose their claim over your future. You are shedding the skin of impossibility. You are growing into the form of the miraculous. You are becoming the vessel through which the infinite expresses itself. And once this transformation begins, the external world has no choice but to respond. People will speak differently to you. Paths will open where none existed. Resources will appear in unexpected ways. You will find yourself guided, nudged, supported with perfect timing. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because you became aligned. The outer world